I hate this hallway. I absolutely hate it. I hate this hallway. Why I didn't put much effort into this, I don't know. But that's all changing today. So let's get started.
So first things first, I primed the walls. I did that off camera, and I did most of my painting off camera too, just because of the fact I knew so much painting would be involved with this project. But as you can see, the difference is major between what it was and what it is now. But before I could get started, I had to take a trip to my local hardware store to obviously get all the trim. For some reason, I really thought that the first time that I went to the store, I had enough pieces, but I actually had to go back 4 different times to 3 different stores. But once I secured my supplies, it was finally time to start on the project. So I decided I wanted my chair rail to be a little bit higher than what I've seen other people do. I wanted mine at 41.5 inches because I actually wanted it to sit underneath the light switches. We will get to that in a little bit though, there is a story there. But after measuring the desired height, I took my piece of wood and put it up against the wall. And unfortunately, I don't have a laser level, so I just used a traditional level to help me make sure that it was level to the floor before I tacked it on. Now I opted out of liquid nails to make sure that I didn't damage the wall and only used a brad nail, so it was important for me to use a stud finder in order for me to nail it into the studs. Now when it came to cutting the wood, this was actually the easy part. It was just basically measuring and doing a blunt cut and then tacking it into place. However, I do have a few corners in my hallway, so I had to make sure I did a miter cut for those pieces, and to ensure that I didn't mess up on those cuts, I made sure that I marked where the blade needed to go and the direction that it needed to go, and then I made sure that I went back and measured 45-degree angle cut before I actually cut it. Circling back to that light switch problem, apparently all my light switches are not the same height in this old house, and so I had to wing it.
So my jigsaw broke. I tried to fix it so many times. I gave up. So what am I doing? I'm sanding it to try to create this little divot here. So wish me luck.
I wish I could say this was the first board that I tried this with, but no, this was the second. But after dealing with that fiasco, the picture panel molding didn't seem that bad.
Okay, so all the chair rail is done, and now I'm going to go in with my picture panel molding. Now, I have my dimensions that I want to do. I want to do 2 inches from the chair rail, 2 inches from the bottom, and spaced out in between each picture panel will be 3 inches. I was going to bring it up to 2 inches, but I marked it at the top, and I thought it was just a little too close to the ceiling because I don't have crown molding. So I decided to drop it down to 3 inches from the ceiling as well. But I do think it's gonna look good, but let's jump into that.
So measuring 2 inches up and 3 inches out, I created a little corner to make sure I knew exactly where my molding would sit.
Now when it comes to cuts, they're gonna be all 45-degree angles, and you want it to basically look like a trapezoid. The thickest part is gonna be the longest part of it. As long as I cut to make a trapezoid, I'll be good to go.
Now when it comes to assembling this, I don't know if there's an actual best method or best practice for this, but I will say I started with the pieces closest to the chair rail, then attached the connecting sides, and then the final piece. I made sure I actually did a complete picture panel molding though before moving on to the next one. And for various things in the way, such as light fixtures, I just did blunt cuts there, and then measured out to make sure that it looked like a continuation of the actual picture panel. And even when attaching the side pieces, the level is your friend. Trust me, you'll need it. But I gotta say, I was more than thrilled to know that the hardest part was over. So the next day was all about caulking, filling in the gaps and the cracks, and just making sure that the trim pieces look like they were always meant to be there. So after preparing it, I went in with the caulk gun. Now I will say this is quite a messy thing if you haven't done it before. If you push it too much, it will just keep on running. And to push it down in the cracks, I just used my finger to wipe it across to make sure and smooth it out as much as I could. And to wipe off the excess, I just went back over with a wet paper towel and wiped it down completely before it dried. Now I definitely could have painted the same day that I caulked, but I decided to wait a day just to be on the safe side, and so I decided to do the same steps I did originally and primed the wood before I actually went in with my paint and primer in one. And seeing it all come together really made me excited to decorate it. Okay, so I am at the thrift store right now. I'm going to check out and see what we can find wall art piece wise. If we can find anything else while we're there, why not look, right? So if you're not familiar with my videos, I do thrift quite a bit. So did I really need to go shopping this day? No, but I did want to see what was there. Maybe I could find a piece that was actually just an eye-catching piece or a staple for my hallway. And that's what I was hoping to find, but unfortunately the things that I was finding were either too high in price or just in such bad condition, like this picture right here, that I just didn't feel comfortable buying it. And it's not to say there weren't great pieces there, it's just that I felt like the pieces that I was finding in this store on this particular day were not what I was envisioning.
The picture panel molding is done, yes! It was a lot of work, literally 2 weeks of nights and weekends, but really happy that it's done. What I need to do now is take all the tape off, obviously. There are still some small DIYs that I need to do too. Originally, I wanted to do 3 panels on this wall, but the spacing was quite similar to this wall. So I kind of changed up my idea when it came to like wall art. So I did go thrift shopping. The day that I went thrift shopping, I actually didn't find anything, and that's probably for the better. So I always thrift empty frames with the intention of making art, and I actually did some artwork for this hallway, which I'm really excited about. I think they're gonna look good. But of course, before we do that, we need to take off all this tape.
So in this hallway, I had a little bit of an eyesore, an old smoke detector that lost its cover well before we even moved into the house. So I decided to take this pole wrap and cut it to size and then just kind of put it over it. But don't worry though, we have a working smoke detector, and I painted this piece the same color as the walls.
Tape is off, DIYs are done. Now it's final touch time.
And just like that, this hallway went from boring to something that I can't stop looking at. But be sure to follow along for more DIYs, room makeovers, and of course, thrifting and styling my home.